Hi there, it's Sandy and AnaLynne, and today's guest is the incredible Charles Rosenay. Hey, Charles, how's it going?
It's going great. I'm honored to be interviewed by the two of you today.
Really? Well, this is very interesting for me because I don't think I've ever interviewed someone who's interviewed me before. Like, you started it.
Right, right. This will be like one of these things that'll go on as we both, continue our climb in, in fame and fortune. We can continue to interview each other alternating times.
Oh my God, we just started a running joke, I think. I think this is gonna have to be a thing. I think this is it.
That's
This is
it.
the beginning. All right, AnaLynne is actually the one that's gonna interview you, so I guess I should let her ask the questions because she speaks a lot better than I do, apparently. Okay, so Charles, when did you find that pop culture first started to make a significant impact in your life?
It's a tie. It was either
Oh,
when my mom sat me down and made me watch Bride of Frankenstein, or when this guy Ed Sullivan introduced a band called the Beatles on February 9th, 1964. And my life was changed. I mean, I was one of these, kids who would collect everything, monster magazines and comic books
oh,
and Beetle stuff and monkey stuff. And I was a collector. I would collect everything. And mom and dad were really cool because they let me keep it. It wasn't like, okay, the month's up. If you don't clean it up, we're throwing it out. And we collected it. And when I moved from New York to Connecticut, it went with us. And just always loved all the stuff that was musical and movies and pop culture. That's it. What's I think a lot of the things I love are the things that you guys love too, and so we're kindred spirits that way. But a few years apart.
only a few. It's not that big of a deal. But that's really cool, and I think we do have very similar interests. So I have to know, when you were just a kid discovering all this, what kind of shows were you watching? What kind of music were you listening to? Give me the
um,
scoop.
there was this thing called AM radio. We had these little transistor radios, and we'd walk around and we'd hear all these really cool boss jock DJs playing stuff like Motown and the Beatles and the Monkees and the Supremes and the Four Seasons and Gary Puckett and on and on and on. And I just couldn't get enough of it. I thought, oh, someday if I have the voice, I would be a DJ. I didn't have the voice, and I thought, well, I saw the Beatles on Ed Sullivan. I want to grow up and be a Beatle, but there's really like not a lot of classes for that.
Being
So
a
what did
Beatle.
I had to do other stuff that where it's tied into the things that I loved. And I became a party DJ. I do entertaining at weddings and bar mitzvahs and school dances and all that fun stuff. So that was a really cool way to get my musical Joneses done. And then I started publishing a magazine on the Beatles, and I did Beatles conventions and Beatles festivals and monkey conventions and monkey festivals, and published a magazine on the Beatles for nearly 20 years. Beatle tours to Liverpool since 1983. And when COVID hit, I couldn't do any of these things that I love to do. So I became kind of an author and put out, some pop culture books, horror book, a Beatles book, and most recently a book on the Turtles.
Oh my goodness, I can't wait to ask you all about that, though. It's like all in the book here that nobody can see. The book, the legendary book. I have so many questions now. You're so fascinating to me, and the fact that you couldn't go out and do stuff, so you're like, so I guess I'll just have to write a book. That's like, who does that?
Kinda, here I am. I'm not able to do my tours. I have no magazines. I don't have book bands to book. I'm not going out DJing. I'm going out of my. Admittedly, we're watching horror movies with my kids. Staying in shape on the treadmill. I'm doing the things I have to do. But at midnight, when everyone's asleep and my creative juices are flowing, like, God, what can I do? What can I do? And that gave birth to the first of my books, which was the book of top 10 horror lists,
Ooh.
where a hundred celebrities gave me their top 10 favorite lists. I mean, rock stars. You'll find 100 terrible Terror, terrible lists from a Beatle, from a McCartney, from a Lennon, from Karloff, from William Shatner, from one of the Monkees, from a Munster, stars of movies, TV. What I did is I reached out to my celebrity friends in the world and said, hey, I want to get a top 10 list from you. And if they're a rock and roller, they go, "Oh, what do you want? Like my favorite heavy metal songs?" I go, "No, your favorite horror movies." I'm like, really? And they were like, so they were home too. It was COVID. They had nothing to do. So
That's
they were like,
so
"Yeah,
cool.
come
I
up with
can't.
a top 10 list for you."
How did you like make all these connections? That's crazy.
Well, if you publish magazine for 20 years and you produce that many conventions. In 2010, I did something called RockCon, RockCon. It was the weekend of 100 rock stars. And I produced that in the Meadowlands in New Jersey. And just like the collector show that we've been at, where, there's a handful of really cool people, here there was 100 of them. It was Tommy James, and it was Al Jardine from the Beach Boys, and Mary Wilson from the Supremes, and on and on and on. People connected to the Beatles. So all these people were in the same place. They were my guests. I flew them in or drove them in and put them up with tables, and you become friends, just through association. So I reached out to a lot of them, and it was funny because that was the weekend of 100 rock stars, and I felt, well, then the book has to be 100 celebrities. Give me their top 10 favorite lists. And very few said no. Very few didn't respond, and really proud. That was like the first book. But when it came out, all my, even though I put 9 Beatle related chapters and like 8 monkey related chapters, all my music people and Beatle people were like, "Charles, how dare you put out a book and it not be a Beatles book?" I,
Oh my gosh.
I get it, but I always said, when I was publishing a magazine called Good Day Sunshine, it was coming out 6 times a year, 80 pages. I thought I was doing a book for 20 years. I was putting out, 20 times 6 a year. I was never going to do books. And I thought it's all been done. What am I going to do? Is there any Beatle concept that hasn't been out there? Well, when the book of top 10 horror list was such a success, well, and all the Beatle people were saying, "Where's the Beatles book?" Ta-da! I did the book of top 10 Beatles lists.
Oh my gosh. Oh, that's so cool.
And the only change was, instead of getting 100 celebrities, how many did I get? Da, 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 da,
Oh,
da, da, da.
perfect.
When I hit
Perfect.
64, right? It's
Who's
also
in
that
that book? Who did you ask for this?
so many people. So a third of it is people connected with the Beatles' history.
Oh, okay.
Um, People who recorded with them, people who toured with them, people who produced them, people on their records, people like John Lennon's sister Julia and Tony Bramwell, who was a dear friend of theirs, and put out some. Larry Kane, who was the journalist who accompanied them on their U.S. American tour. A third of it was people directly connected with the Beatles' history. A third of it was rock and rollers, members of the Cars, members of Vanilla Fudge, all these people who are really cool rock and rollers, but not necessarily a Beatle connection. And then the other third was people had nothing to do with the music industry, but were in the entertainment world, or well known as athletes, or famous DJs, or actors, actresses, And between the third, it's a really cool. You don't have to be a Beatles nut like we are to love the book. You just want to pick it up and say, "Oh my God, Tommy Chong from Cheech and Chong. What's his top 10 favorite lists?"
Yeah, you know
or
what? I totally get that. I'd
right?
be one of those people just like, wow, you know what? I want to know everything about this person in this book. So Beatles, why not? I mean, I guess I'm a little partial though. I do like the Beatles a little bit.
A little bit,
A little
yeah.
bit. Yeah, they're that like small group in the 60s, right?
They had a hit or two, I guess. Yeah.
Well, we have to. Oh, well, sorry, AnaLynne should really ask you the question. I do this all the time. I just totally steal the question away from her. Yeah, I don't even know who she thinks she is. Yeah, me neither. So, Charles, what is it
Yes.
that goes into producing all these events and conventions? What do you have to do?
What goes into it? Oh my God, it's endless. So everything from, in the days when I was doing nothing but conventions, it was finding the best guest, making sure they were happy and getting them here. And I kind of had a leg up on that because I go to Liverpool every summer. I've been doing that
Oh,
now
really?
for 40 years. I've been bring Beatle fans with me. So I became friends with people like Pete Best, you know, the Beatles' first drummer, and Paul McCartney's stepmom, and this one and that one. And they becoming friends, they want to, you know, hey, Charles, you do these conventions in America. Can I come over and be a guest at it? So it was kind of, you know, very, very what's the word? Where one hand washes the other. They wanted to come over. I wanted them to be a guest. You know, John Lennon's first wife, Cynthia Lennon, was a guest at my show, and Joey Mullen from Badfinger, and it just on and on and on. So the guests were always the first thing I would, you know, try to get something special, and then I would try to get the best possible Beatles band around. For many years, we used a group called 1964, the tribute. We used the cast of Beatlemania. We put together bands where we would get the best McCartney from this place, the best Ringo, and put it together as like the Beatlemania All-Star Band. So through the years, and more recently, we've used a group called the Hoffners. And for many years, there was a Connecticut band called the Needles. And we would use these great bands. So they would play, the guests would be there, and we'd have like sometimes up to about 80, 100 vendors who were selling every possible, you know, Beatles record, Beatle buttons, Beatle dolls, you name it, they would have it, Beatle books and authors. And so we did that for many, many years, and that kind of faded away. And then I brought back the Beatles Festival, which is, I don't know if you've ever been to Harry Fest in Massachusetts, but it's a similar, where that's mostly about the music. Now the Fab Four Music Festival in Connecticut, it's about the bands. It's 10 bands and a handful of vendors, not usually any special guests, but it's more towards music, music, music. And it's outdoors and it's always fun. We do that every summer. But how did I ever start doing these conventions? I was nuts. If someone asked me, hey, I want to do a Zeppelin convention, what do I do? I go, run away. Don't even, that's why I said it. I saw the shirt. I say, run away. Don't even think about it. It's so much work. And, sometimes it takes years before you can even break even. And there's so much stress involved. It's very stressful. But I'm very much a masochist, and I like inflicting torture and work upon myself, as you can tell by these too many projects I'm always doing. But I'm not personality. I'm a hyper. You see that I'm aggressively wanting to do. And if I'm not doing, I'm getting bored. And I never want to be bored. I just have too much fun with all the things I do. So the first year I was still in either high school, freshman in college, and I said, "Hey, there's Beatle conventions in Boston, and there's Beatle conventions in New York. I'm in Connecticut. Why don't I do a show in the middle?" I'm trying to do one of your voices there. Did it work? And and not knowing what I was doing, I put on a show, and it drew, what, a 50 people, 100 people, one vendor. But everyone had such a great time that we did it again, and it was at the college, and it grew bigger, and every year it grew and grew and grew. So I was lucky that I carved my own little niche in that whole world. But a big thing about it was I was kind of liked. A lot of people liked me, and that goes a long ways. Maybe I'll save that for our words of wisdom. But anyway,
Oh, no one's ever going to expect that after 30 episodes of asking people for words of wisdom.
but I think that's a big part of it. I don't never stepped on people's feet, and I treated everyone the way I want to be treated. And that, just I was a fan. I was a fan doing stuff, and I still do, that I thought other fans would love and would appreciate. And that was always my thing. Would I want to see this guest? Yeah, if I want to see this guest, I want them at the show. If I want to hear this band, that's the way to go.
When you were first becoming a fan, did you ever imagine yourself having such involvement with these bands and shows and all these different things you love?
That's such a great question. I could never have imagined that I would someday, be having dinner with Paul McCartney, that I would play softball with Davy Jones and Mickey Dolenz, that, I would become first name basis with these people. I never thought that. Davy Jones called me up one day, and I'm like, hello? He goes, yeah, it's David. And I go, David who? And he goes, come on, it's David. I go, yeah, hey, how are you? He goes, good, Charles. How are you? Good. What's up? I got these Beatles bubblegum cards. What are they worth? I go, about $1 a piece. He goes, okay, thanks, bye. I'm like, what? That was him. He would just call out clear blue sky. He wanted to know he had probably a handful of Beetle cards. He wanted to know what they were worth out of the clear blue sky. Just called. It was really great. Peter Tork lived in Connecticut, not far from me. So we would do stuff beyond all the festivals and the conventions. I would book them whenever I could. But one year I was doing a Beatles expo. I think we called it Beat Expo in Stamford, Connecticut. It was probably 2009. And I invited him to be a guest at my Beatles convention. And at the time, that wasn't really the norm. Mickey's just done a bunch of them. He's always at Beatles festivals. And at the time, Davey had done a convention for me. But Peter goes, a Beatles convention, me? He goes, well, I'm sure you're going to think of a good reason why you want me there. And of course, a few weeks before the show, I called him up and said, hey, I didn't ask him. I just said, we're doing some TV appearances. Can you meet me at channel such and such? We're going to be on the air. He goes, yeah. So that's why you wanted me for the promo. Sure enough, he did some TV appearances with me. He was a guest at the convention. I thought he was just gonna sign autographs and meet fans and maybe do an interview. He jammed with the bands that were there. He jammed with the Beatles band. He jammed with Spanky McFarlane from Spanky and Our Gang, who we had as a guest. He was just everything. He wanted to be part of everything. And it was really, really special. But Peter Tork and David were just so special to me. I knew Michael Nesmith, just peripherally from a meeting or two. And Mickey, I probably met and interviewed more than any of the guys. But with my Beatle encounters were Ringo, George, and Paul, and never John.
Oh my, can you tell me about the Beatles? I want to know everything. Getting to meet that, I just can't even imagine. Oh my, go ahead.
Um, George Harrison was a fluke in that we'd given up. I brought a group of fans to see him perform in Tokyo, and he did 3 Japanese concerts, and we were at all 3 concerts, and we, did everything we could to meet him. But what's the possibilities of that? We met his wife, we met Olivia, we met his son Donnie, and at the airport, we're saying goodbye. We're ready to leave. We're at the checkout counter, and he's walking by. George Harrison, and everyone's like, George, doing that freak out. George, we asked him if we can take a picture. He goes, yeah, but I'm not going to stop walking. And he walked in place like a cartoon character so we could take his picture. Afterwards, some of the people met him in the executive lounge. He signed autographs. It was really special. That was our Harrison encounter. Ringo for me many times at press conferences. There was a show called the Phil Donahue Show, and I helped the producers get Beatle fans to fill the audience. So of course, my only thing I wanted was to be able to ask him a question, and everyone's asking him Beatle questions. And I said, so Ringo, tell us about what it's like being a grandfather. And he loved answering that question. I'll tell you a funny Ringo story, which I share once in a while, is I was producing BeatleCon in Detroit. I was the co-producer of that. I was the MC, and we timed it because Ringo was doing a concert in Detroit, and we thought maybe by miracle he'll come to a Beatles convention, which of course he didn't. But convention's over. It was a Monday. I'm sorry, Saturday and a Sunday. Sunday night, I'm at the airport. Sunday was his convention, probably his concert. Probably he's at the same airport.
Oh my God. Oh my God.
He turns the corner. He's with his manager, David Fishoff. I'm ready to say hello, and I stop, and I don't say hello. Why? My special guest at the convention was Pete Best, and I was wearing a Pete Best Forever shirt. I
Oh,
could not, I could not say hello to Ringo at the airport wearing a Pete Best shirt.
oh my
Nowadays,
God.
nowadays I would. I would have said something like, "Hey, I put this on for you. I hope you don't mind." I would have been really cheeky, but in those days, I didn't.
I don't think I would do that either, though. I mean, oh my God. Oh my God. I can't even imagine. Jeez. Oh, that's crazy.
And
So,
Paul
was
was the toppermost of the poppermost. In 1986, when I first met the Monkees, they were rehearsing at the Catskills at the Concord Hotel for their 20th anniversary reunion tour. and I played softball with them and ate dinner with the team, with the crew and with the guys, and met Gary Puckett, and it was really, really one of the greatest weeks of my life. And I said, this is the ultimate. I met my idols. I met, Mickey, Peter, and Davey. Played softball with them. Saw their concert. I never thought that would be top, but a couple years later, I got to meet Paul, and it was just, it was magical. And met him a few times. He was always, Linda, his wife at the time, would always say, "Oh yeah, 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 Charles Rosenay, you're from Connecticut, originally the Bronx. I'm in Scarsdale, right in between. I remember you." She was always really great, and she would always say, "Yeah, we get your magazine, Good Day Sunshine. We really like it. That's really special." So that, that meant so, it meant the world to me, being that fan who never thought I would, be what, and then become someone who actually met all these wonderful people. Yeah.
That blows my mind. I can't even imagine being like, can I just be you? Can we just stray for a little while? That's
It blows
crazy.
my mind. It blows my mind too. If we can do a Freaky Friday thing, I would gladly. We'll change.
Only for a little bit though. I mean,
Whole
I wouldn't want to
department.
take advantage.
No, no, no. Yeah, we'd have to go back. I would. I would not. I would not keep your youth. That wouldn't be fair.
I don't know, man. I think I'm probably getting more out of this deal, but okay. So, when you were wow, okay, let's say that again. So, when you were first becoming a fan, was it the Beatles or the Monkees that you liked first?
It was the Beatles
Oh,
because
right,
I'm old.
you saw the Ed Sullivan show, so I mean, it must have
Right,
been.
because I'm old enough to go in that order. But then in '67, Sergeant Pepper came out, and there's this album that kind of confused me. There weren't any hits on it. I didn't even know what song titles were on it. There was this psychedelic cover with these guys with beards and mustaches, and I'm like, wait a second, there's "Here We Come." Well, and I'm like, all of a sudden, I'm a Monkees fan. I'm loving them as much as I loved the Beatles in their prime. And I'm thinking, wow, I love two bands equally? Can I share that? Am I being am I cheating on one by loving the other?
I
And
totally get that.
and I obviously understood, that the Beatles were certainly much more important as far as, relevance and what they were creating. But my love for the Beatles and the Monkees never ever waned. And during the '80s, when people were like, "The Monkees," and they'd roll their eyes and, "Oh, really? Do you like the 1910 Fruit Gum Company too?" I was, well, yeah, I do. But people really were, they downed it. They were really frowned it, and it wasn't like, well, I understand the Beatles, but why don't you like Pink Floyd? Why is the Monkees? And I would have to be that defender. I would have to be the apologist. But that never ever waned. If you're seeing the Beatles here, the Monkees were here, and everybody else was under the two of them. And that's kind of, always stayed that
Nice.
way. I
Wow.
was a big part of when I was in college radio and I was on the air. Yeah, everyone was playing the Doors and Leonard Skinner, and I don't remember what other. And that's fine. It's great music, but I would want to educate. I'd want to play um Ronnie Spector followed by Rachel Sweet. I'd want to play Roy Orbison followed by Elvis Costello. I wanted to educate the audience and show the transition from one to the other. And I still feel, my gosh, the Monkees are so great. They should be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. So
Yeah.
should so should this band called by the name of the Turtles should be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. These are two bands that were so influential that so many people loved. It was part of everyone's musical DNA. And just because they put out hits, my God, is that a reason to keep them out of the Rock and Roll Hall of
So,
Fame? I don't know.
Charles, tell us
Yeah.
about Monkey Mania Radio.
Oh, I'm glad you asked. So I mentioned earlier that I was in college radio, and I used to stand in front of mirrors and I would lip sync every song, and then I would do intros to the songs. I would, practice DJ stuff thinking that someday that would be my, vocation, until I heard this voice, and I knew that it wasn't a voice for radio. It's a personality voice. You give me an audience, you give me a microphone, and I will entertain 10 people or 1,000 people. You give me a bar mitzvah, I will have everyone dancing. You give me a wedding, I will have everyone smiling. And I found that to be, my calling, and I'm great at that, and I make people happy. And I never thought I'd go back into radio until I discovered that there was this fledgling radio station about to open called Monkey Mania Radio. And I said, well, I would love to be on the air, but not as a DJ. I don't need to play music. I do that on weekends for a living. I would like to do the Monkeys interview show. And they loved the idea of that because they knew I had so many contacts and I had archives of old interviews, and I would do the research. And when the station started in its humble beginnings, I was interviewing a lot of really cool people. And once a week on weekends, the Monkeys interview show airs on Monkey Mania Radio, which can be heard on Roku and www.live365.com. And I have such a blast with that. I was honored to interview the biggest names like David Cassidy and Mickey Dolenz and Sandy Netburn and all the real biggies, as well as just people, who might have promoted some of their concerts or toured with them, or recorded with them or wrote some of their songs. And it's just been a really fun ride. I get a kick out of it. I think you enjoy interviewing. It's a fun thing. You get to learn more about people. And then when you air it, you get to share your own fun with people who are hopefully listening. And sometimes, you get a couple of people who love it and comment on it, and it makes it worthwhile.
I think your interviews are absolutely incredible. And being that I got to be interviewed, I feel so honored. I remember like I don't do people don't interview me all that often, so I was so nervous about it. And then I was like, I'm just gonna not even think about it. I'm just gonna sit with him. It's just Charles, and we're just gonna do it, and it's gonna be fun. And then you asked me to play a song, and I picked up my guitar after having a guitar lesson earlier that day where we were learning Zeppelin songs, and I went to go strum a big G chord, and it was totally out of tune. And I remember almost flipping out. I was like, "Oh no!" I went to go do one of my first interviews ever, and the guitar is wildly out of tune. But thankfully, I mean, you're such a great host. I was fine. I lived through it.
I heard the note. I said, "Gee whiz." I knew it was a G. It was you. You took over. Come on, you claimed it. You professional
Oh,
from the first word on.
oh, that's so sweet. But you're just such an incredible host. I love listening to you. I just think I don't know. I just think you're the best, man.
Uh, Thank you. I really appreciate it. I have fun. I think if I have fun and people hear that I'm having fun, there always seems to be a smile in my voice. If that's a lesson to learn. Oh, no, not yet. I'm sorry. I was going to say, you always have a smile in your voice if you could.
How do you do that? Explain it. Give me the details.
Actually, smile when you're talking. It's so easy because I'm talking like this, you know, I've got that off. It's not fun, you
Okay.
know. It's you got to stick up your tush. You don't need that. You need to be out there and friendly, and it goes a long ways, and it makes you happy. And it makes the person you're talking to comfortable and happy. It's so much, yeah, it's so important. Wouldn't it be
Absolutely.
great if everyone did that?
Yes, it would be. I think so. I think
Would
we'd
we
make
have
the world a
would we
whole
have
lot better.
wars? We wouldn't have
What?
wars.
No,
We
we
wouldn't have
wouldn't.
wars. We wouldn't have jealousy. We wouldn't be constipated in this planet. It would be so much better.
Uh, what an interesting way of putting that. Uh, it's so evident when you're doing these interviews and in everything you're doing that you just love it so much. I think that's what makes it such a blast. So thank you for that.
I'm really blessed because so much of what I do brings me joy and brings others joys. Bring other yes, joy. The conventions, the tours to Liverpool, everything. Thank God. The books, I don't know. I mean, I hope it brings people joy. I don't know. I hope it does.
I'm sure.
Because yeah, I don't get the immediate feedback. if I'm DJing a wedding, I know that I've walked away and the people were happy. If I do a convention and they're, I know it is instant gratification. If I do a radio show, yeah, I'll get some comments. With a book, maybe I got to go to Amazon and read a review or two. It's, you don't know, and it might be someone who reads a chapter a day and doesn't get to it from. There's not that same knowledge, so that's why I say I hope they are. I'm guessing they are, but I have to be a little modest somehow, right?
No, you're just an incredible person. I'm sure they love it because I mean, if they love you. Everyone loves you, so obviously they're gonna love your work. Duh.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you.
Well, why don't we talk about your books? Like,
Yeah.
let's talk about your newest book.
Well, let's go in order
Okay,
because
sure,
we
let's do
we
that. Whatever
touched
you
on,
want to do.
we touched on the book of top 10 horror lists, which is packed with music people also, and there's a website for that. It's www.bookoftop10, the number 10 horrorlists.com. All right, so we got that out of the way,
All
and
right.
before I put out the Beetle book, I sneaked out this book called True Ghost Stories of Connecticut.
Oh my gosh.
My other love, as you know from the horror stuff, is the scary stuff. So I love music, and I love rock and roll, but I also love horror and monsters and stuff. That go, and so we put out this is me, by the way. That's my persona.
Oh my gosh. I'm like, no, that is not you.
Yeah, yeah.
That's so cool.
And so this was like firsthand paranormal accounts by individuals who experienced the occurrences. Ooh, it's by Charles Rosenay. So that was the second book, and those were really okay. And then I made it to the next level, and we did the book of top 10 Beatles lists, which is available from Book of Top 10, the number 10 Beatles list.com. They're all on Amazon, obviously. But if everyone wants autographed copies, people loved signed copies of these books. So those were the big three. And I thought, well, I got some other plans. And what can I do next? And a gentleman who's a good friend of mine named Mark Arnold put out a few books. One book was Mark Arnold Picks on the Beatles, where he reviews a lot of their songs and picks on them, so to speak. And then he put out two Monkees books with Michael Ventrella, another author. And what they did is they went through the Monkees catalog, and they did Siskel and Ebert kind of thing where the one reviewed the song and the other person gave either a counter review or why they agreed with it, and they literally went through the whole library. And Mark said, "Hey, Charles, would you like to do one of these on the Turtles?" And I said, "I love the Turtles and I would love to do a book like that, but I got to do it in my style." Theirs was a lot more student, like, the more professorial, the chord progress changes from this song to another. Oh yes, I see that, but I also see he would give his review, and then I say, "Dude, I hear what you're saying, but it sounds so much like," I was writing my review as if I was doing an interview with you, how I would talk it. And it came out very, very, I mean, I think more successful than it could have had we both been just very serious about it and solemn. And he would give, who recorded it and who was on the recording and when it was done and what studio. And I would say, yeah, that's fine. But man, if it had a stronger hook, this could have been a hit, that kind of thing. And what we did is in not just Happy Together, which makes sense because if someone doesn't know the Turtles library and doesn't know their discography, the song they know is Imagine Me and You. I do. Sing it with me. I think
I don't know
about
the
you. Do the chorus. So happy to. That's it. There you go. So there's a lot of people who just know Happy Together. And the book is not just Happy Together. The Turtles from A to Z, AM radio to Zappa. And that's important that we put Zappa because the Turtles were this amazing band. And unlike the Monkees, unlike the Beach Boys, unlike the Mamas and the Papas, unlike the Hermits, unlike so many bands in those days where the record label had a few bucks to spend and they would put the guys in a studio They'd use this lead singer or lead singers, and they would bring in the wrecking crew, or they would bring in all these musicians where they knew in 2 hours the professional musician would knock it out. They didn't want to take a chance with these young pop stars who may or may not hit their G chord correctly. See how I went back to that? So what they did is they brought in, what they call professional musicians. It was on all the Monkey records in the beginning, right? Well, the Turtles were on a label called White Whale. Never heard of it, right? No, it was this little dinky label that put out a few hits, didn't know what to do with their albums, but didn't have the budget to throw the guys into a studio to just do vocals and bring in professional musicians. They said, you guys, you record it. Every note, every song is the Turtles. It's not outside musicians. And they had literally hit after hit with It Ain't Me, Babe, She'd Rather Be With Me, You Baby, Happy Together, Eleanor, You Showed Me. And someone who's really, knows music, who's more astute into their legacy, knows that it goes beyond those 8 or 10 hits, that there's so much more to what they put out. One is a rocker. The next one sounds like the Beatles. The next one sounds like the Beach Boys. The next one is yacht rock. They were so diverse and so amazing that when I was ready to put out the book, I had to go through their catalog and I discovered songs I'd never known and fell in love with even more of them and discovered so much that the book was a big learning curve for me as to a band that I loved and thought I knew a lot about and discovered so much more. And we're talking about, the book of top 10 Beatles lists is, it's this size. The Turtles book is this size.
Oh my
You can
God.
you can see the difference. We've got one that's tiny, and this one, this one I could knock someone out with. Oh, I just did. Oh, it's
Oh no, what do I do?
almost 500 pages of material. And then as I went, I learned things that my co-author knew, but I knew that the Turtle had something to do with Frank Zappa. They were part of they put out so much material with Frank Zappa, and they were the backup singers for Bruce Springsteen, and they were the backup singers for T-Rex. Oh my God, so much stuff. Yes, the Turtles, all this.
What?
Why are they not in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame with, is my hair okay? With the Monkees? Why are they not in there with the Raiders? Why are they? I can go on and on. And it's because, some acts are perceived as AM radio hit makers and other acts, I guess, are cool. Well, the Turtles were not cool. The lead singer did not typify a really handsome, good-looking guy. The other partner was overweight and twirled his tambourine and caught it behind his back. Well, you know what they had, Sandy? They had personality. And that's what I love. The Beatles had personality and humor and great songs. The Monkees had what? Personality, humor, great songs. So did the Turtles. And that's why they were up there in my brain forever. And that's why they deserve this book. And people who don't know about them should read it. And people who love them should definitely read it. And the website is www.notjusthappytogether.com. And we're so proud because, we did a lot of books where I self-published, but this was put out by Genius Music Publishing, Genius Books. And these people are just amazing, and they knew what our vision was, and they made it even better. So really proud of the book. And before we're done, I'll tell you an exclusive on what the next book is.
Oh, oh my God. Well, I'm so excited about that.
Can we do that now?
Yeah, why not?
Well, have you ever seen any of these? Hold on. Have you seen any of these? Have you seen any of these? Have you
No,
seen,
what?
have you seen any of these? Any of these? Any of these? Have you seen any of There's only 17, but I have hundreds of them. Any of these? What are these?
I don't know. What are they?
These are Monkeys comic books.
There are
In the
monkeys comic books?
in the 60s, Dell Publishing put out 17 monkey comic books. Nobody remembers these. And if they remember them, They remember them fondly, but not many people have them in their collection. They're very hard to get. And if you do have them in their collection, it's probably beat up and scuffed up and all that. Well, what we are doing, this is a secret. We are taking the original comics and we're remastering them as if they came out in 2024. They're digitally remastered, so they look like they're immaculate, like they look like what Marvel would put out on the stands now. And we are going to take every single issue as was and make them look 10 times better. And what else are we going to do? We're going to put in a little price guide so people know the value of the original comics. And what else did we do here? Because you know I love doing these celebrity books where they give me the top 10 lists. Well, I got 17 celebrities to give their little blurb, which I will then put with the 17 comic books. So it's people like Bill Chadwick, people like Butch Patrick, Eddie Munster, people like Chip Douglas, who produced the guys, people like actors John Provost and Paul Peterson, and all really 17 cool people have either given me a review of a comic or their memories of the monkeys or why they love the monkeys. And this book is going to be so special, and it's hopefully going to be as big and as glorious as the Turtles book. And it's also going to have, there was one artist, Jose Delbo, who did all the artwork in 16 of these comics. And he just passed away, but we did an incredible interview with him, which is going to be in the book. So this is probably one of the most exciting books that I just can't wait to put it out. And it's Mark and myself, Mark Arnold, who put out the Turtles book, and myself, and we're putting it out, and we just can't wait. It should be out for Christmas.
That is the coolest thing ever. Like I can't even. How did you? I, There's so many questions. How did you come up with how to do this? How did this happen? When did? Huh?
It came out. It came out because I didn't have a complete set of these and found them so hard to get. And then when Mark and I knocked heads and came up with the Turtles book, we thought about, well, he did a Turtles book like that. What else can be done? And I said, well, I think that the world needs a graphic novel where all the monkey comic books are reproduced. And then somewhere along the line it was brought to our attention that, well, yeah, some of these comics haven't really aged well, in that if you look at the insides of them, they're kind of yellowing and
Right.
they're not as bright and bold, although cute, it's all muted, nice colors. But every story is so funny and every story is so cool. And it was like each comic would have like 2 or 3 stories in it, and each one could have been like an episode of the
Oh, really?
program. So the only thing next step was to have done is to find a really amazing artist who could turn it into what it would look like if it was released today. And when we put that all together between the price guide and the reproduction of the comics and getting the interview and all of the above, well, you know what? We realized we had a book there, and not just a book, but something that comic book collectors would want,
Right.
illustrators and artists would want. But what monkey fan wouldn't want to have the complete set as it is? Well, now they're getting it digitally remastered with interviews, with commentary, with price value. So I think it's going to be a big seller, and we're really excited about it. I think it's going to fill a gap, fill a need. And I couldn't think of another Monkeys book. See, when I put together the Beatles book, it was, what isn't out there? What hasn't been done? And it
Right.
was a celebrity giving. Well, for the Monkeys one, it was the same thing. I'm not going to do their biography. It's been done. Mickey's done his own. Everything that's been written, I think, is already out there. Well, this is what I think was needed, and that's what we're working on, and it should be out by the end of the year.
Oh my gosh, this is so exciting. I'm so excited about this.
My co-author Mark Arnold and I will hopefully come back on your show, and it'll be the two of us with the two of you, and we can talk about the book when it comes out.
I would love that. Oh my goodness. Yeah, I don't know what that was. Pretty wild, huh? I would absolutely
For
love to
sure.
do
We'll
that.
do a deep
So when
dive
you
into
say,
the monkeys comics, and all monkeys. Yeah, that would be fun.
well, I do love my monkeys, and apparently the Bay City Rollers were just back there for some weird reason. But who doesn't love the Bay City Rollers? Why not?
It's straight pop. It's, power pop. If they came
Power
out
pop. I love
at
that.
different time, they are up there for me with the Raspberries and Badfinger and bands that you may or may not have heard of, like the Paul Collins, The Beat, and the Jags, and the Tremblers. These are all bands that similar 2-3 minute great songs that are ear, you get them in your ear and you're singing them the whole day, because I only want to be with you. There's just so many great songs.
I mean,
And yeah.
God, it's so good. There's so much good music out there. It's just like there's just so much.
Yeah.
You know, you know what day I listen to the Bay City Rollers?
Every day but Saturday.
Every day but Saturday. I was going to say Saturday.
SATUR, TAY, night, SATUR. So I used to work in this club, Sandy, and you won't believe it, but it was all oldies music, 50s, 60s, 70s, and I would act out certain songs.
Oh my God. Act them
So
out.
yeah. So if I did a Beatles song, I put on a Sergeant Pepper outfit. If I did Good Lovin' by the Rascals, I put on School Doctor, if I played Saturday night, I would put on a Bay City Rollers scarf. I had pants that way that came up 3/4 inch, and I would do and I would jump around the crowd. It was
That's
like yeah, I did this in a club for close to 10 years. And we'd act out songs, and it was if we did Grease, I'd wear the leather jacket. I'd have someone wear, dressed like Sandy, and we'd do songs together. But Saturday night I would always play that on Saturday night. Every
how
single
could you
every
not? It's like, how could you not?
Kevin, right?
Greatest thing I've ever heard in my life. I like, is there video of that somewhere? Because I want to see that.
You are asking a heartbreaking question. So part of my contract with the club is they said I could never videotape myself because they were always afraid I would do that and then sell my services to a competitor, or that I would move to a different club based on this sizzle reel of me doing, putting on sideburns and lip syncing Elvis, because that's what it was. It was act after act. Little Willie won't go home, but you can't push Willie around because Willie. I had like a dance routine to every silly song I would play, and they never would let me videotape it, and that's
That
too
is
bad.
so sad.
Yeah. I would have loved to have had that as a like a legacy of some sort.
Maybe you should bring it back.
Okay. Well, so on May 10th, I'm going to be doing a one-off dance in Stratford, Connecticut, where I'm going to be bringing all those songs back to life. Really, believe it or not, I haven't done it in quite a while. So,
Seriously? Why
yeah,
every
yeah.
time I say something, you're like, well, I'm gonna be doing that.
It's called the Connecticut Rock and Roll Sock Hop 2024. I think you can
Real?
Google it on
Is that
Facebook.
is that
And
actually a thing?
it's an actual thing. I'm going to be doing a night of all the silly dances and routines, and yeah.
It's just so funny. I swear, like you just do everything. I could just say anything right now, and you're gonna be like, "Yep, that's happening." 2 months from now, I'll be doing it. So, so tell me, where can people follow you, Charles?
When I step out of the house, there's
Uh,
this driveway.
um,
You don't mean that way?
no,
No.
not that way. I mean, I guess if that's what the way you want people to follow you, I wouldn't recommend it, but that's up to
So,
you.
so seriously, my Facebook was hacked in November, and the best way to follow me was always on the Facebook thingy. And so I'm still trying to recover that, but until I do, I guess Instagram, Charles Rosenay, all the websites we mentioned earlier. If someone wants to come on a Beatles tour with me to Liverpool, I do that every summer. It's liverpooltours.com. If they want to go to Transylvania over Halloween, it's www.dractours.com. If they want to come with me to Massachusetts to my Salem Paranormal Horror and Paranormal Convention, which I do every November at Salem State University. Uh, One of the things you don't know about that I do, Salem It's Salem Paracon, SalemParacom, paracon.com.org.com. I don't know.
All the
Just
same.
a lot of ways to follow me. But you know what they do? They can just email you, and you can give them my email.
That's true. I can absolutely do that. So email me, sandynetburn@gmail.com. I think that's the public one, and if not, oops. So we'll just pretend that's the public one. I was thinking about you today. I along with like two other million people thought I was hacked on Facebook.
Oh, oh, because right,
The
right.
worldwide outage. I
Oh,
immediately thought of you. I was like, he gave me his hack disease. Like, what
oh my
is
God, I can't imagine. So today's, for those who, I don't know when this is going to air, but it's March
probably a
5th.
lot later.
Yeah, yeah. And Facebook and Instagram were both literally offline for an hour or two, I guess. And the whole world was writing to me, did you cause it, Charles? Did you, because everyone else is hacked, did you find a way to hack the rest? God forbid. I'm so miserable over not being able to be in
Oh,
contact with my friends
no, I'm
that
sure.
I wouldn't wish it on anyone.
I can't even.
People think I'm not alive anymore. I get emails. Why did you unfriend me?
Oh my
What?
God.
You
Well, maybe
didn't.
when I put this out, I don't know if it's gonna be of much help, but maybe we can clear that up for maybe the people who haven't figured it out.
The people who were friends of mine before, and they're listening to the show. I have another account under Nat RockCon, RockCon, because when I was producing the National Rock Convention, which was the weekend of 100 rock stars, I did this other account just to have on the side. And so I'm using that as my main one. But by the time this airs, hopefully I'll get my original one back, please. Please, God.
Yes, please.
Facebook deities, whoever you are, please make it happen. Thank you, thank you.
What?
Um,
Like, they totally suck with that though. Like, there's no one to contact. They're like, if you have an issue, we're here, and then there's nothing there. There's nothing.
it doesn't exist. Robots, AI, I don't know. There is nobody
There's no
who
contact. It's
you
like it's
call
just, I don't know.
Facebook and say, hey, Sharon, Roberto, whoever you are, can I get my face back, please? It was hacked, and I really didn't do it, and I want it back, please. There's nobody. You're right. Yeah.
Oh, this it's terrible. Oh man, that makes me so mad. Every time I think about this, it makes me so mad. Come on, get it together, Facebook. Just saying. Well, I hope you have it back by the time this airs. When we first started talking, we were talking on that account initially, and then you contacted me on the one you're using now, and I was like, "Who's this Nat chick?" I was like, "Is that like Natalie or like?"
Oh, that's interesting. People, because there's a guy named Nat. The
Oh, are
Beatles.
there?
Beatles original attorney was Nat Weiss.
Oh
And
man.
maybe it's short for Nathan or Nathaniel, or maybe it's just Nat. I don't know. But yeah, I never thought it could be
On
um,
Facebook, it comes up like as two different names, so it's like Nat Rockon. So you go in your
Natalie.
message and it's like Nat. I'm like, ooh. I figured it out eventually, obviously.
It makes sense. Nat for national and Rock Con for rock convention. Yeah, when you know what it is, then it makes sense.
It would make more sense if they had it all as like one word, but they use it like first and last name, and it's like, dude, why? Just give him his account back. That's all we want.
Yeah, it doesn't even have to have my three exclamation marks. Just please give me my account back, right?
Three exclamation. What are you talking
I
about?
signed my name with three exclamation marks at the end.
Seriously?
If you've ever seen my name anywhere, anyhow, every possible place, three exclamation marks,
That's so
three
fun.
exclamation marks, three exclamation. Oh, I just dropped the book. Three exclamation marks.
Are you
Yeah,
okay? Is it okay?
yeah, it's okay. It's all
That's like
good.
your signature. I was doing that a while with my podcast names. Like if you go to the really early ones, it says the guest name with two exclamation points because I did it on
Oh,
a school project for something, and I was like, I have to. It was like an invention I had to make, and I was like, I'm gonna patent this with my two exclamation points. It's like really weird that we're having this conversation now, and you sign your name with that. That's like that's wild.
well, let me throw the genesis of it to you. I was taking an art course in college, And I was great at graphic design and advertising, but fine art, eh. And we were doing paintings, and the class, he said, everyone, you guys are all okay. There's no one who stands out. You're going to have to find a way to make yourself stand out from the crowd. Think of something that you can do that no one else does. And I want that to happen by the time we grade again. And I started doing a lot more paintings, but I signed every one of them with my 3 exclamation marks. And when it came to the grading, he said, "This kills me, but somebody followed my instructions verbatim, and his name stands out because he put 3 exclamation marks at the end of his name. So Charles Rosenay is the only A in this period, but I guess it's Charles Rosenay, the way he said it."
That's so funny. Oh my gosh.
And I stayed with that. Yeah.
That is genius. I love that. You definitely followed it. That's so funny. Oh man, that's so Charles Rosenay though. That's
It's
like
so Charles Rosenay, right?
it is. Oh my gosh. Well, speaking of something that's so Charles Rosenay, can you give us some of your finest words of wisdom?
Words of wisdom. Why does that make you do this? We did it together.
Yeah, I don't.
I did a very, very serious program on authoring and writing books. And I said, I brought up the fact that I do a lot of acting. And when I act, I overact. I try to be very bombastic with my presentation. And I was always like that as a DJ at parties. I figured if someone wanted to book someone bland, they could. But I would stand out by being a little, not louder, but a little more brash, a little more fun, a little more personality. The Beatles, the Turtles, the Monkeys, personality,
Right.
humor. And I tried to do that in everything I've done. And when my kids started getting into theater and they would go out for parts and they would read it, I go, read it, like, go crazy, because a director can scale you down. If you're too hyper, he can calm you down. But if he doesn't see that you can potentially do that, and he's just seeing you read, you're reading the same way 20 other people are reading. And you have to set yourself aside, and you have to make yourself different in one way or another. You have to be yourself. Words of wisdom: be yourself, but let that be yourself try to be somehow different or more of something than the next person, whether it's more gregarious, whether it's more fun, whether it's more loquacious, whether it's more funny, whether it's holding, a partner next to you who has a life of its own. Any of the above are reasons why I think a big thing for success is to just stand out and show your true colors in whatever way possible. And I've probably given a lot more words of wisdom than I was intending to in a thought, because it's multiple thoughts, but I think you get the thought. And I think hopefully that's wisdom filled words. Yes.
I think so. Do you think so? I absolutely think so. Do you think so?
I absolutely think so. Do you think so? I absolutely think so. Oh, good.
Is somebody else in the room?
I don't know. Must be. It's crazy.
That was wild. Did you hear that too? I was like,
From far away.
did you say it was the fire alarm?
No, I think it came from far away. It was like
Oh,
the other side of the.
what was that?
I never
Oh,
knew the fire alarm had a voice and a mind of its own. Go
well,
figure.
that's why you need to treat everything with love and respect. Like I'm about to do with my Missing Links album that I couldn't get in a position where it wouldn't shine because the
You
plastic's
could.
still on it, but I
You
love it.
could. You could. You could. So if you hold something like this, it will shine. If you hold it forward, you won't get a glare. Let's see if it works.
If I hold it forward like this,
That should do the trick.
well, what
When
do I
you
do when
take
I set it back? Because it's
oh
like
yeah, when you take pictures of things, if you hold the top forward a little, you will avoid glare because the light can't hit it the same way it would if it was leaning the other way.
you would think that I would like know that because that's like common sense, and yet here we are, and I'm learning it for the first time. What?
But it's not easy to display because in order to stand on something, it has to be leaning back, like your Hard Day's Night album. So how do you do that? You can't. You got to kind of hold it to make it
Well, we're
appear.
sitting here with them, so I've given them their moment. I might have to take the plastic off. I was keeping the plastic on all of them because I just wanted to keep them new and beautiful forever, and then I realized that was dumb, so I stopped. Yeah, I don't know. Well, anyway, I'm so happy that you came on my show and spoke to my show. And spoke to both of us. I'm so thrilled. This has been so much fun.
So much fun. And hopefully we gave out a lot of information, I think, right?
I think so. And
Yeah.
apparently there's more to come, right?
More to come. Can't wait. Can't wait.
It's gonna be such a blast, and you better contact me about that. I'm ready for that one, that interview, even though I haven't even started preparing. I'm ready.
Thank you for having me, guys. Such a
Thank you
pleasure.
for everything. You were the best. And I'm going to hit this recording. Thank you.
Thank you.